Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here with you for another episode of Thriving Together. This episode is honestly one of my favorites so far. I really hope you'll cozy up with a warm cup of tea, or actually, it's summer now, so maybe an iced latte or whatever your drink of choice is, and enjoy this episode that I have for you this week. I loved this conversation so much. I'm going to tell you a bunch about our guest, but I wanted to start with just giving you a little bit of an update. When I recorded the first half of the season, I recorded a lot of those episodes and I grouped them together. They were like at the beginning of the year. And I didn't really do intros that were very personal or giving you lots of updates because I think I was just going through, oh my gosh, I've been so much inner exploration, excavation, work, all of the things. In January, I was tapering down off of steroids, which was a huge, huge, huge journey for me after being on them for 18 months for a diagnosis I got in 2021. Oh my gosh, no, 2022. I got it in May of 2022. I got my first symptoms in 2021, so I always get a little confused by the dates. But I just was going through a lot the first few months of the year, but all really like for the better. And I don't mean that just to like create a silver lining to push one or force one to happen, but I really can look back and say, oh, wow, I've learned so much. I don't know if you follow like astrology at all, but we had a huge solar eclipse and it was like the week of my birthday and so much happened. And it was an eclipse in Aries, I believe, or like Mercury retrograde is in Aries. I don't know, but the sign of Aries, which is what I am, was definitely being put through the ringer, being pushed and like just told to transform in many, many different ways. And so I think that's what I've been going through for the last like several months and really owning my voice, owning my purpose, owning my work in new and exciting ways. One of those ways is through the amazing new coaching program that I have. I have not offered one-on-one coaching in so long. I used to do this all the time when I had my own company before Chronicon called Bella Life. And I used to work with people one-on-one. I used to do group coaching. I loved it so much. And I do a lot of group coaching in the Chronicon community, which is our app that you can sign up for. We also have scholarships if you need them, but we do have an app available for Android or iOS, and it's called the Chronicon community if you want to search for that. And you can also DM us on Instagram if you need the link or anything like that. But we have hundreds of members from around the world in that community. And I get to do group coaching with them. We get to support each other. We have amazing resources. Some of the most like world-renowned experts in their field are coming to talk to us about things like grief and boundaries and relationships and owning your dreams and knowing how to really go for what you want in your life and also not being a victim no matter what is going on with your body. So it's a truly transformational coaching. It's actually not designed to be a coaching program, but it is what we do a lot there. It's a truly, truly transformational app and community if you want to join that. And it's definitely our most affordable option that we have to work with me and to be a part of everything that we're doing. And then I also launched this one-on-one coaching program, and it's called Own Your Magnetism. And my face just lights up when I start talking about it because I love it so much. I love the people that I've been having calls with, that I've been getting the chance to work with. I do a one-on-one a one-on-one coaching program for 6 months if you want to sign up for 6 months. But then I also have offered some really special, like deep dive virtual retreats, which is really great. So you get a little bit more of a concentrated amount of support right in the beginning, right when we start. And then you also get me in your pocket on Slack, basically, for like the whole month. So there's a lot of different ways that I have allowed myself to open up my calendar, open up some space to work with people because I know so many of you are constantly looking at the things that I've been able to create around having my own talk show, building multiple brands, creating brand equity, learning how to talk to media, learning how to talk to press, and doing it in a way that's actually about you and not trying to fit into someone else's mold, but being who you genuinely and authentically, and to me, divinely are here to be. So, if you want to learn more about the Own Your Magnetism program, we'll drop a link below so that you can look at everything. You can go to the show notes on my website if you want to check it out there. Or you can also just DM me and let me know that you've heard about the Own Your Magnetism program and you want to learn more about it. So, I wanted to share that with you. And I'm also just so happy to let you know about all these different ways that you can work with me and be a part of what we're doing, either through the Chronicon Community app or through the one-on-one coaching program with a retreat or with the 6-month program. So lots of ways to be a part of our world, lots of ways to be a part of this work, and lots of ways to own your gifts and your talents and to really embrace the full, liberating, beautiful life that you are meant to live. And I'm here to help you and show you how to do that one step at a time. So, thank you for listening to all of those updates. And now I want to share a little bit about our guest today. I got to talk with none other than the amazing Reshma Saujani. She has been a friend of mine for, I don't know, like 10, 12 years at this point. And I always love seeing her whenever I get the chance to, but she's also somebody, as you'll hear in the beginning of this interview, I literally was like moved to tears seeing her and saying hello to her and talking to her about her work, because I have just always felt so inspired by her and what she has been able to create, but also as an activist, as somebody who runs my own company, and as somebody who, is doing this work because it is deeply personal and important to me. I look up to Reshma, even though we're friends. Like, I actually think that's the best part, is being friends with somebody who you admire so much. And I just can't wait to share this interview with you and for you to see why I admire her and how many ways she has touched my life and hear more about the important work that she is doing. So I want to read you a little bit about her bio. Reshma Saujani is a leading activist and the founder of Girls Who Code and founder and CEO of Moms First. She's the author of the instant bestseller Pay Up: The Future of Women in Work and Why It's Different Than You Think. Reshma has spent more than a decade building movements to fight for women and girls' economic empowerment, working to close the gender gap in the tech sector, and most recently advocating for policies to support moms impacted by the pandemic. Reshma is also the author of the international bestseller Brave, Not Perfect, and her influential TED Talk, Teach Girls Bravery, Not Perfection, has more than 5 million views globally. Reshma began her career as an attorney and Democratic organizer, and in 2010, she surged onto the political scene as the first Indian American woman to run for U.S. Congress, which is just unbelievable. So in this conversation, we talk about all of those things, but we actually talk a lot about God and our spiritual journeys and connections. And I just really hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you also share it with people. I have been loving the feedback that I've been getting from folks about the show and the changes that we've made. And I really would love to get more people to know about what we're doing here. So please, please share this episode of Thriving Together, any other one that has resonated with you. And thank you so much for being here. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with our guest today, Reshma Saujani. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I was just saying that I'm like nervous, which is so weird because we are friends and I've known you for over a decade now. And I have watched your journey up close and from afar and all the things. But I think I'm nervous because I just admire you so much. And I feel like I'm going to get emotional actually, because you are just such a person in my life that I look at what you're doing. I look at how you, oh my God, I've never
Now you're going to make me cry. Oh my God.
podcast like crying, but yeah, you, you are someone, even though, I know we don't talk, it's not like we talk every day, but you're somebody who I look up to in my life so much because of all the things that we're going to talk about today. My audience is not like that unfamiliar with me crying, so But I don't think I've ever started a podcast where I just started crying thinking about the guest. But that is how
Oh,
meaningful
you're so beautiful. Thank
your
you.
work has been in, I mean, millions of people's lives. But just as somebody, as a South Asian woman who is
Mm.
committed to a movement as well in the work that I do, I look at what you have done and what you show up to do every single day, and it moves me to tears. So thank you for
Thank
everything.
you. That's so beautiful. Maybe I feel like sometimes things happen because you're like I needed to hear that today. You
Mm,
know, you need
yeah.
to have that gratitude or that, that sense. Well, I love you so much. I've always been in awe of everything that you're doing and have done and the space that you keep and the women that you also lift up. So mutual admiration.
Well, thank you. Do you mind telling me why you feel like you needed to hear that today? Even just like high level?
Oh, I mean, look, I think I'm coming from a period where I've been running really hard and I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And I think there are moments where I think when you're an activist or you're trying to make change, like there's no retirement.
Yeah.
And so then you often think about like, okay, what does a slow down version of this look like? Um, and then look, this is something I talk to. I have a monk who I have like a standing meeting with every other week that we talk about. And I think that you can probably appreciate this. We're great. We're raised like Bissy and Brown, and so we're taught to keep it humble. Like we never got the compliments or the good job, and so that being making sure that I keep ego in check is always really important to me. Which means I don't know how to take compliments. I don't know how to take gratitude, right? But then you need gratitude, as like I talked to with my teacher, to fuel you, especially when you're doing work like this. Sorry, that's like a lot to start off with.
No, why are you sorry? I cried. Literally like, no, this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you because I know so much of what you do and like all the videos that I've been watching and all the different things I've been doing and I watch them not just to prepare for this interview. I watch your stuff all the time and I'm always like looking at what you're doing and really using it as such a model for how I want to continue to show up in the work that I'm doing. And at the same time, I know that there's like so much warmth and depth and heart in that body of yours that I have had the pleasure of connecting with because I know you personally. And also, you're out there like leading the charge and being asked about imposter syndrome and, laws and different things that are so important, but that are the work and not always just about the humans. So I actually like that's so much of what we're doing at Thriving Together is like figuring out who is this person behind this huge conversation that you're having every single day. So thank you
Mm.
for sharing all of that. And what you said about talking to a monk, um, I'm like, I'm not passing by that. Actually, that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about specifically because you sort of mentioned in your Failure Friday posts and like your weekly newsletters that you also have been really cultivating this deeper connection to God.
Yeah.
And I love God. So
No, I love God too. It makes me so happy because I feel like sometimes God is out and it's hard to bring him, her up, right, in conversations.
yes, yes, I totally agree. And I want to talk to you about that because I understand that you started doing like a course around God, like learning, I think the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like
Yeah.
want to talk about it. Like what starting from the beginning, like where did you first learn about God? Like why
Mm.
even know that God existed?
So I feel like I've always been attracted to God.
Yeah.
And growing up Hindu, right, we have a temple. So like my mother, we woke up every day and prayed. And or on weekends you went to temple, you went to Swaminarayan, you went, you basically were around God and like religious people. Like God was kind of a part of your life. And so I definitely always felt his presence and his protection. Um, But look, I think like a lot of people, I had a transactional relationship with God. Like, I want this. I want to get into this school. I want to get into this job. I want, I want my parents to start fighting. Like whatever it was, right? It was more about ask and receive. Or if I was scared, I felt like I needed to be covered. And so, I had this thing, and I also am going to be like starting to write more and think more about this. But I don't know, like I would say a couple years ago, I just the same things that moved me weren't moving me anymore, weren't
Mm.
floating my boat anymore. And I was like, oh, is this post pandemic? My ambition is waning. Like, what is this about? And also, as a part of that, I had this thing where every year I wanted to learn something new. And I had gotten it in my head that I wanted to learn the Bhagavad Gita. And like most Hindus, we don't really know much about our religion, right? We just pray, say the mantra, do the
Yeah.
puja,
We
and
have a
then that's
Ganesh
it.
statue. I
And
have a
have
few
a Ganesh
Ganeshas.
statue or a few, right? But no one's really, you didn't understand,
Yeah.
right? What the religion exactly is, what the Ramayan's about, what the Gita is about. So I just wanted to say, I can't be a God loving person and not really understand my own religion.
Mm.
And so it began this search for a teacher. And I also know, it was actually quite hard to find a teacher that could teach you the Gita.
Yeah.
I reached out to some like religious teachers at like NYU. They ghosted me. Nobody emailed me back, right? I tried doing these kind of Gita online classes. It'd be like me and like 50, 70-year olds, right? And I was like, oh, this is not work. Like because I had so many questions and so
Right.
many notes. And, the text is very hard. It's not like
Yeah.
you can like pick it up like a book and just like read it.
Yeah.
Um, so finally, as serendipity would have it, I was at a party for a friend and standing there, and I'm like, I'm definitely like an extrovert introvert. So like I hide at parties.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of sitting there and saw a friend of mine and he's like, what are you up to? And I often do this. Like if there's something I'm trying to put out in the universe, I always just say it, right? And so I'm like, oh, well, lately I've been trying to learn the Bhagavad Gita. I can't find a teacher. And he actually knew of one because he was kind of in this like leadership coaching business where they used the Gita. So he ends up introducing me to my monk, who I call him my monk, but his name is Rasnath. Um, and we kind of began studying the Gita, which was pretty much like last summer ish. And it's been really a game changer in terms of how it's changed my relationship with God. Um, but it's also made me realize that it's not like one and done. I think when you're a seeker, you're you're not like fixed. You're constantly on a journey, and I'm just kind of on one.
Mhm. I really love that. I want to like maybe get your monk's number and figure out like who he
Done.
works with because I've always wanted to have like a spiritual teacher like that. And I feel like when I was younger, especially when I was at the height of some of my health stuff, I met a lot of these gurus and teachers that were honestly like, I don't think totally in it for the right reasons. It's almost like they would use like God and spirituality to manipulate. And I don't know that they were doing that consciously, but I think that happens a lot when people are in a place of like suffering or feeling lost. It's like they use that as leverage. And so I've always felt a little skeptical. That's part of why I haven't talked as much about God like openly because I
Yeah.
find people do. It's usually with this like ulterior motive of like, come, like I have all the answers, like I'm going to
Yeah.
fix everything. And I'm just like, no, 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 like this is not that. And I learned about God. My parents always say that they're like, I don't know where you came from because I've been obsessed with God since I got sick, since I was like 10.
Yeah.
And I felt like God was my boyfriend. I would just be like, I didn't have any friends growing
Yeah.
up, like when I was younger. So I just would talk to God all the time.
That's
And
beautiful.
it was so great. And even now, like when I'm going through a breakup or I'm going through a friend thing or I'm feeling lost with work or whatever, I'll just, instead of picking up the phone to like engage in codependent behavior or like try to grasp onto something outside of myself, I go into my relationship with God.
That's
So
beautiful.
it's
That's
been a double.
beautiful. So why do you feel like you're not talking about that more? Because you feel like, so, right? Is it other people's judgment about God?
I probably, but also because I think I have this fear. I love how you're asking me questions. This is great. I don't know because someone told me they wanted to hear more about my perspective on my show. So I'm
Right,
trying.
here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Leave it to you to pry me open. But yes, I think it's because I'm afraid that like it'll be cheapened or something. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's it. It's your sacred relationship. And it's true. Like, I mean,
Yes.
I think as an influencer, as a leader, not everything you experience has to be shared with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also know that God is such the center of my life that it's like a disservice also to not open. So we'll see. We're talking about it now, so this is a good first
Yeah,
step.
this is well, here's the other thing. I've been thinking a lot about the fact that, like, I just think that right now, like, who do people look up to? Like, nobody, right? It's like we're in this moment where there's not business leaders we look up to, there's not politicians we look up to, there's not and so and I think as we've become more in our phones, kind of insular, we've all created almost a sense of like God complex
Hmm.
and this lack of inspiration. But at the same time, we want community. Like why was the eclipse so, I mean, everybody just wanted to be out there with their neighbors and just experience something together. It was so beautiful. So
Hmm.
I feel like there's just this moment right now where there is this craving for more spirituality, more understanding. Like I always say, like you can't understand other people's suffering if you don't understand your own.
Hmm.
And to understand your own, you have to like sit within yourself and like go deep and understand like what are your wounds about. Like for example, yesterday my son was asked. So my son Sean is an old soul. He is like he's always talking about God. He's always kind. When he was, I think not even like maybe 1.5, I had taken him to TED. I was doing my big TED talk, and he was sitting there. We were at a hotel, like on a outside, like in the lobby, and he was playing with a toy car. And there was somebody who was sitting across from him that was paraplegic. And unprompted, I just saw Sean slide his car over to him. And it was just like, I'm like, this child, like, I just need to, and so like, my role as mother is to nurture it. So what means is oftentimes he gets into relationships with other kids where the kids are not always nice to him.
Yeah.
And he will continue to be kind, nice, and gracious. So I then want to go in, right, and be in mama bear, right? Because I don't got a problem sticking up for myself. But he'll say, no, you got to let me do things my way. And so he was saying to me, well, mom, didn't you go through this when you were my age? Like, well, who were your friends? And I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't think I had any friends. You know, I
Yeah.
don't think I had friends at
Yeah.
8 or 9. I was this awkward kid. I was not, comfortable with the way I looked or the way, and I would come home every day from school and I would watch TV. And I don't think I had friends. And it wasn't until he asked me that I realized that I had never actually, that this was my trauma too, part of my trauma, that I
Hmm.
had never really sat and thought about, like, how could I at 9 or 8 have had no friends or no recollection of friends? Like, that could not have been good. Like, I need to unravel that. I need to go call my dad. I need to go call my sister. I need to, you know what I mean? I need to figure out,
Yeah.
because I have a tendency just to block things and like have amnesia about it. But I just raised this again, which is like you could unlayer yourself and spend
Yeah.
hours upon hours upon hours just unlayering your own trauma. And we just don't spend enough time, I think, doing that. And then we cause trauma on others because we don't understand ours.
Yeah. I mean, I often say if I got paid to process, I would be a billionaire by now because I feel like that is all I do.
Oh, that's
But
so good.
it
I
is a
that's
real thing. And I find actually in a lot of my relationships, part of my challenge is like and I'm better at this now, but a lot of times it's because I'm so aware of like the way the trauma is going to show up is going to affect my body. I have such a powerful body. It affects all of our bodies, but I do find mine is especially loud at times.
So
And
then
so
what happens? Like something bad comes. So how do you process? Like what's your processing hack? I need one. Sorry.
oh no, don't be sorry. I mean, I'm just always connecting with my body as like my greatest teacher, right? So I get up in the morning and I'll do a check-in and I'll say like, okay, how are you feeling? Like what's going on? Now it's more automatic, so I'm not actually even asking the questions. I'll just notice and then I will sort of intuitively know like, okay, well, I'm feeling a little like insecure today. I'm feeling a little self-conscious today. So I'm going to not rush into like a workout or something intense or something to like push myself out of it. I'm going to actually love myself through this thing. I'm going to maybe make my coffee or, call my mom or do something that's going to be like gentle and nurturing because my body is telling me it like wishes it could have like a hug. And that's like the younger version of me that wants that, right? That's that version that was really just going through so much lack of expression of love as a child and just in the dynamics, not even because anything, anyone wasn't trying hard, right? Our parents are incredible. But like you talk about with your family, being immigrants,
Yeah.
refugees, with your family, it's like it's so traumatizing and painful for the parents, like to have to take care of kids on top of that. I just
Yeah.
can't even imagine. So yeah, so it's that all day long. It's that all day long. And then connecting with God and saying like, okay, God, I'm feeling like you could hurry this up a little bit. Like I'm feeling like this is frustrating or I wish this was happening. Okay. And then I hear a lot of messages when I do that. I hear a lot of feedback from God telling me, Nitika, go do this thing. Go write that person. I get tears in my eyes and it moves me to take action,
Mhm.
because of that, because the connection is so sacred and so strong.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that the other thing is like we're so conditioned to think that that processing or the relationship that you have with God is selfish. I
right.
used to, right? Like it's like I remember even I would think the idea of like a sadhu going into the forest, selling all their things, standing in a banyan tree and meditating was so like self-indulgent
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah.
right? And but you realize that in many ways if all of us as humans did one version of that, there probably wouldn't be war.
Yes. But you know what Eckhart talks about, Eckhart Tolle, which I've been
Yeah,
really, really listening
I
to
love
his
him.
more and more. He talks a lot about how, we are a human being, right? So there's two parts to that. So it's not about saying the sadhu is being, selfish, but there's an alchemy that actually needs to happen as you are a human being. So it is one thing to go be in the forest, right? But you're negating the humanity, the human aspect of the discomfort, the rub that happens when someone forgets something or doesn't answer you the right way, or, when you have to
Yeah.
pay for insurance or you have to, do all of those things. That's part of the refinement in your
Mm.
being. Right. So I think that is a really interesting thing that I've been focusing on a little bit more. Like there's that tendency to want to just escape and be
Yeah.
like, oh, we're
And
done.
I think that's where the Gita is so powerful because it basically says there's multiple ways till salvation,
Yes.
right? Like you can be the sadhu in the forest, relinquish everything, and
Yeah.
just focus on your relationship with God. And then, or you can also, and this is where I feel like I'm at, is you can see this journey in your life as a service to God. So, like, I wake up every morning and saying, God, how can I serve you?
Yeah.
And anytime anything good happens, I thank Him first,
Yes.
right? And I say, this is again in your service. Um, and I think it's a keeping all of that kind of in mind is really important for me.
So
It's been game changing for me.
I love that. And, thinking about things happening in your life, I want to do a segue a little bit, although we'll always have God here with us, obviously. But I really want to talk to you a little bit selfishly, but also because I know there's so many people who are listening that are leading their own movements. They want to really make a change in this world. And one of the things that I just love about you is the way that you turned so much of the things that you learned in your life into an actual movement, which
Mm.
is different than I'm going to start a company or I'm going to try to have a conversation about something. You have helped hundreds of thousands, now millions of people, especially girls around the country, around the world. And that's something I want to do too. That's something so many people that I know want to be able to do that. And I think one of the things that I have been thinking about a lot and wanting to talk to you is you talk about, how the system needs to change so much, right? Like, yes, we can always be better. We can always better ourselves, and there's always work for us to do, but it's also a systemic issue.
Yeah.
My challenge, I find, has been even just in leading the conversations around like chronic illness. I guess I'm wanting to know, like, how do you go for this fight and really go for this change without feeling like a victim? Does that make sense?
Mm.
Because you're being marginalized by a system, right? And sometimes for some of us, and I know you've had experiences with your body too that are very significant, sometimes we're being marginalized by our own bodies.
Yeah.
And yet we
That-
want to overcome. So yeah, tell me.
well, I think it's because you're fighting for, you're like the warrior that's fighting for people who don't have a voice, who may be victims, right? Or who may be consequences, right, of this lack of like structure that like lifts people up. And so I think you have to see it that way. Does that make sense? Like that you are fighting for the voiceless. And like that's also why you've had to manage this pain. So like I very much felt that way, like, when I was like, why am I suffering from all these fertility challenges? Why is this happening to me? Why is my body not cooperating? I've always wanted to be a mother. Like, what's happening here? And, I realized afterwards, after I went through this miscarriage, I learned so much about my body. I learned so much about autoimmune issues. I learned so much about, to IVF, to share with, like, part of going through that pain was to then do something about it and share it with others. And I probably speak to like 3 or 4 strangers that are going through IVF and now surrogacy, right? To say, this is what I learned. So I think part of what you do is you put your pain, which may seem like, quote, victim, being a victim, and make it into power,
Yeah.
for change to help others. And also recognize that that was what the point is of why this specifically. Why did you like have this exact thing happen to you with your gifts and your ability to bring voice and to organize people? Like that there's a purpose to that.
Mhm. Yeah. And I know that there's a purpose to that. Like personally, like I get up in the morning and I say, okay, God, like I believe that you made me the vessel. So I'm just going to see, like, what are you teaching me today? And how can I,
Yeah.
move forward in that way? But I do find that there's this like whole paradigm a lot of times because people who are chronically ill oftentimes are unable to work and then they're further marginalized because they have to be on disability. Disability doesn't even barely help them pay for what they need, like their basic needs are, and then they're in serious, severe, like mind-numbing pain on top of it, right? And then they can't even afford their health
Yeah.
care. And it's just it is overwhelming. That word is fair and accurate for that experience. And yet, and I know that that's true too for the women that you're helping, right? Like women who are, I mean, dealing with the government taking away their rights on a daily
Yeah.
basis, not giving them paid leave, like not giving them just human decency in terms of the rights.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying, yeah, you're saying something so powerful. I've been thinking a lot about it. It's like, I think the question you're asking is, why don't we have compassion?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's kind of, so in my space, people are like, well, why do I have to pay for someone else's childcare? They're not my kids. So it's like that there's a version of that in your work, right? Which is like you're lazy, right? You just don't want to, like, you just don't, are you really suffering? Same thing here.
Mhm.
Like, are you really having a hard time? Right. So I think that to me is where we've lost our compassion. And we've gotten worse as a society over the past, I would say, 20, 30 years, where some of these conversations were obvious, right? Like, of course you want to take care of our children. Of course you want to take care of someone who's chronically ill. That's what every society is judged by how they take care of their young, their sick, and their elderly, period. Right? And so that is our judgment. But we don't feel that way anymore. And that's really, for me, what I like, what I have been nerding out about in my space is when did that happen? And what is that really about? Why do we not feel compassion for mothers? And I think once you can try to really understand it, and I think then you can start to do something about it and understand, like, what are the points that you have to change. Like, so is it more about storytelling,
Mhm.
right? Is it about finding examples of people that people are connected to? I think a great example of like real kind of cultural change on this is in the gay rights, you know, they really moved the needle in
Yeah.
shifting how people felt about gay people, right? To it being like, well, to it being like, well, this affects everyone.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love that you're bringing compassion into the conversation because that's something that is free and everyone has access to it. You just have to care enough to want to cultivate it. And I think that's so, so real. And in terms of like what you're saying about like even shifting the way that you lead the change, that's something I wanted to ask you about too. Were there ever times as an entrepreneur that you felt like you were on a certain path with the conversations that you're so committed to, and you had to like reiterate or change those things in a way that maybe felt like intimidating, or how did it feel if that was the case?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. Like, for me, like I was in a very frustrated moment, I would say a year ago with Moms First, because I felt like I would be talking to like 10,000 women a week, and they would, when I would finish, I felt like they were looking at me like I was crazy. And so I was used to at Girls Who Code, because I had developed a story to tell about why girls weren't coding, and then a solution to that. That I
Mhm.
could take people through an emotional journey where they were laughing, they were crying, they were thinking, and then by the end of it, they were with me. Like, I could look into the audience, whether they were standing up on their feet, but I could see that I had converted them
Mhm.
very early on. And I would say, in Moms First, I couldn't I just couldn't understand why people weren't going on this, why at the end of the day, like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, let's either march, burn it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That people were just, and I realized that, like, oh, like, I'm not even in, like, I'm not even like in like the place in a movement where you're just convincing people about the solution. I'm still in persuasion. I'm
Mm,
still like, you are still feeling like your situation is your fault. Like, you're
mm,
not, like, you're still like, you're still like processing in many ways what I'm saying. Like, you're not ready for the revolution yet
mhm,
because you're still, like, so if you think about like movements, it's almost like it was a different stage,
mm,
right? That I thought mothers were in than the one that I was in, because I had gotten through my consciousness, and I had got, but they weren't there yet. And so there was a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm a shitty leader. This is not the right issue, right? Like, I'm not the right person. Um, this line isn't working. The story's not working. Like, it was like a million things where it was like, and then I had to just get to a point where I was like, oh, it's not me. And it's not even them. It's just like, I gotta give it time. I'm very impatient.
me too.
Yeah. So, like, and oftentimes I'm way ahead,
Yeah.
way ahead, right? So, like, even with you, you're talking about chronic illness before we went through COVID, and people actually understood what chronic illness was. Now people know what you're talking about, right? You're laughing, you're shaking your
Yeah.
head, but like, right?
Yes. Yes.
You were way ahead. So, when you're sometimes way ahead, what you have to manage is like not feeling like you're crazy.
That does come up from time to time. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And thank you so much for sharing that about Moms First because and I know it had like a different name at first and like that
Martial
was
Life for
very
Moms. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, and I just really appreciate it because as I started out this interview saying, like, I just look up to you so much, and so I'm always looking at how much you're doing and how many stages you're on and how many people you're able to influence and how much work you're doing that's, like, really making a difference. And yeah, sometimes I'm like, "Oh my god, I wanna help so many people." I mean, 133 million Americans have a chronic illness, like, it's not a niche market, like, there's a lot of work to be done. And I also know that, it's still iterating. It's still, like it's there's still something I feel like, that's coming together that hasn't fully formed yet in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two big things are one, team. Like I never do this stuff alone at all. I have like an amazing, always at Girls Who Code. Now here at Moms, there's an amazing team. And you got to find people who have different superpowers than you. Like
Mhm.
I know very clearly I am good at thought leadership. I'm good at strategy because I can see what's coming ahead, and I'm good at raising money. And those are the three things in any organization I should do. Uh, I do not run the day to day of the teams because it's like I don't have the same patience. Like I feel sorry for I mean, and like even when I have to manage someone, I'm like, okay, you know that I'm really bad. Like I'm gonna call you all the time. I know I'm supposed to have structured one-on-ones and do you know what I mean? Like tell you how great you are all the time and like I know like but I'm very self-aware, right?
Yeah.
And so for people who like that energy, right? They're like, this is awesome. For people who are like, I want boundaries, it's like, this is not awesome. So I think part of it is just so team is really important. And I think the second thing is oftentimes when we're trying to solve a complicated problem, we try to do too much.
Mm.
And so I always try to keep us focused and narrow and not because people come in, why aren't you doing that, and why aren't you running a conference, why aren't you doing a direct service, why aren't you building a consultancy, right, like I'm just how many people have come to you and said that 50 different things that you should be doing, and so you have to be super disciplined to be like, well, because those are great ideas but I'm doing this is my intervention. And so discipline and like team are really important.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that you said that because that was something else I wanted to talk to you about. Because my new thing lately has just been like every time I meet with someone, they tell me 50 new ideas. And I'm just like, guys, if I had done nothing to this point, fine, fair. I have built 25 things and I have done a really great job at building these things. So, like, what can you do with what I've already built? You
Right.
know, not saying that there isn't room to grow or improvement or, iterations, but like, there's a lot here, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, and it helped me figure out how to improve on the things I'm already doing, not find a new thing.
Yeah.
Um, but listen, we're it's like we're also at a weird moment where I think when we were coming up a lot, there were social entrepreneurs that you looked up to, right? There was the like Wendy Cobb, people running Teach for America, and Charity Water, and all
Mhm.
these, and now it's at a we're now who are the right? It's like we don't social entrepreneurship is more important than ever before because government is broken, but we're not actually like paving the way. Like I'm like if I was like Mackenzie Bezos or if I had a lot of money, I would literally pick the top 50 social entrepreneurs like you, like, and say, tap them and say, here's $10 million. What's another problem you want to solve?
Yeah.
Right? Because it is like elevating them to the point that they are both heroes and that they have the support. I mean, oftentimes like what we do, I'm always so alone. I feel so alone, right? It's like I don't know who to talk. Like it's like it's just it's really or even like where do you go? What should I be thinking about?
Mhm.
And you don't really have that many role models,
Mhm.
to kind of look to, other than people who many times stay in their jobs too long.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, side note, when you do get that huge fund, because I know it's coming, like, I will be available. I just want you to know.
Oh,
I
trust me. Every
definitely
time I meet like anyone who has money, I'm like, you know what I would do if I was
yes.
you? This
Oh
is
my
how
God.
this is where this is like what I would do. Um, and it's like, I know that there's like, a handful of millionaires that kind of write that $100 million check. I'm like, write the $10 million check,
Yeah.
right? Write the 20, like, but like tap people on the shoulder and said, I know because the thing is, people always like, girls are going, how'd you do it? I'm like, I had $100 million. I raised $100 million. And so it's really hard to solve chronic pain or solve childcare paid leave if you're just begging for,
Yeah.
5, 6, $7 million or $3 million or $2 million. And
Yeah.
so you need to put real resources into like people that can solve these problems.
Mm, that's really illuminating to know that you would.
Huh? Do you want to say hi? You can say a quick hi, of course.
Hi.
My little one who loves rainbows.
Sweetheart. Oh my gosh, I love your rainbows.
Bye, buddy. Will you shut my door? I'll see you. I'll go be down in a minute.
Oh my God, I love. Oh my God, beautiful. No, that's really illuminating that you had $100 million because I definitely have just been working on getting our foundational, resources in. And yeah, that's a completely different way of approaching the problem. And then being able to actually build out the infrastructure to
Yeah,
make
because
change.
people are like, oh my God, girls, I'm like, yeah, I had a lot of money. Like that's the thing. Like, don't for like it's really hard to build, you know, you can't build a game changing organ. So, without the resources that you need.
I really
And we
appreciate
often we make women fight for these resources. We make them beg for them. We make them feel, and so always remember, it's like, it's not you, it's the system. The system is not set up in many ways for us to truly solve these problems.
it. Yeah, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is like, which I've also been talking to God about because I've been like, okay, God, I feel like I've seen this pattern in my own life, but also in a lot of women's lives that I know where we're sort of like waiting for something to save us. I don't know if you've ever like thought about this, but I have definitely I'm outing myself. I've definitely been thinking about this more recently because it's like this very all or nothing way of going about things. It's like you have everything, but then you don't have anything. So you need someone to come in and like save it or change it. And for me, it's not really been romantically. It's been more like trying to do this with my work because that's what I've been focusing on so much. But I'm trying to figure out like, how do I like solve the problem, the need, right? So the need is actually like we need more resources to be able to build without coming from this place of like I need to be saved. I feel like
Yeah.
it's a very fine line.
And like, do I really need those resources, right? Like, can I do the things that I want to do with what I have? Or and if the answer is no, then I think you do manifest it. Like, you do put it out there in the universe. You do ask for it. You do focus on it, and you'll get it. Um, and I don't think that's necessarily, quote, being saved in
Hmm.
the same way, but I do think you just shift it from like, I don't know, like, again, an intentionality about what it is that you need to do the things that you need to do. And I do really believe that like you will get what you need to do the work that you need to do, but you have to believe it. I think what becomes hard, and I've seen this with other people who are, in spaces that are often starved for resources and attention, is you enter these spaces with so much hope and you exit them with so much resentment.
Mm.
And that is like not where I know I want to end up or where I want you to end up, because the work is hard. And part of being in this work is knowing that you're not going to get the resources that you need, that you're not going to get the recognition that you need, that every step is going to be hard, but that's part of the journey.
Mhm.
That's what makes it fun and interesting and curious and tough
Yeah.
and so sweet and beautiful and joyful when you do have those moments. Like last week we secured our biggest grant, and it just felt so damn good. And I say this as somebody who just told you I raised $100 million, right? But the fact that I could still feel that feeling of how I felt when I got my first big 6-figure check, even though I've gotten hundreds of them, right? Since then, because I know how much it meant to us at Moms First. And I know what that record, and I was still keeping that hustle, that humbleness real.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for saying that. And also thank you for bringing in like the resentment thing into the conversation, because I feel like I always have my eye on that. I'm always like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure I don't get to that
Yeah.
place? Truly, because it does feel, and shout out to like the app that we built for Chronicon, the Chronicon community, because it is those real stories. And I know you talk about this even with like Girls Who Code, like all the different people, all the different girls who have created these amazing, solved so many problems that are just absolutely life-changing. And then you can look at them and say, oh, this is like why I do this, and this actually does matter. And I feel that way about Chronicon and the community every single day. I'll talk to somebody who tells me that the community is their lifeline and it helps them feel more empowered and more liberated, and they have real friends that like get what they're going through in a way that they never had in their entire life. So yeah, it's a huge part of it. Well, thank you so much. I have one final question for you.
Cool.
And I always want to ask people this. So, the podcast is called Thriving Together. So I always want to know, what does it mean for you to thrive? Like, what does that look like for you?
I mean, I think thriving for me at this moment is like living my life authentically and recognizing, like, I always felt like I always had to push the bus up the hill. Like it's always so hard. And I realized that it doesn't have to be that way. And I have so much more control over that than I thought that I did. Um, and so that is something that I am working on, which also means that, like, I'm working on myself. Like, I'm very fast. I think fast. I move fast. I speak fast. And so when I always feel like I want to slow down, but then when I slow down, I'm bored. I'm restless. I'm anxious, right? Because it's very hard for me to live in the moment. Like, I'm the person who leaves my yoga class 10 minutes early, which I did today. Again, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, who leaves, what's it called? Vanasana, right? Like
Oh yeah,
me,
Shavasana or
right?
something. Yeah.
Shavasana. Yeah.
Like, we're the
So,
worst Indians. We don't know what
because
it's called.
right, exactly.
It's fine.
Because I'm like, right? It's too much. And so, like, that is like my in the place where I'm able to really rest and be still is with my kids, and was, with my baby Stanley, before she
Yeah.
passed. And so, and my husband, I feel so lucky, is I married someone who is so in the moment. I mean, that man,
Yeah.
during the solar eclipse, right? He's like, this is incredible. And I'm like, is it done yet? I got to get home.
Like, I have a meeting.
Or like he's like, like, I'm like passing me the glasses. I'm like, I already saw it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how many times do you want me to see this thing? Right? Like, that is like us, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but I want to be like him. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be. And so for me, like, that's like also like, I don't know, long-winded answer, like my
No, I love
intention
it.
about kind of getting to there.
Yeah. And it's also beautiful to like surround yourself with people who bring those other parts of you out that, like, you're not quite there yet, but like this is a goal and this is your intention.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Resh, I'm so happy that we got to chat today. Thank you for sharing your brilliance and your warmth and just all of your wisdom with our audience. I know that people are going to love this episode, and it's truly an honor to have you on the show. So
Oh,
thank you.
well, I'm so excited to be here. I love you.
Love you.